All right, big show today, probably the best one ever, and we're on season 4, episode 3 of the Gene Ho Show. This one you're going to stick around for because we're talking about Donald Trump and George Magazine, and yes, we're going to go there. Stick around, the Gene Ho Show coming up. Welcome everyone to the Gene Ho Show, and you're going to love this show because it's a very special day, and I'm filming this on a Sunday for a particular reason. By the time you get this, Monday, maybe Tuesday by the time you see it, but this show is very important, and it's very important to me because today is a very special day. Today is the 11th year since I first met Donald Trump. I met Donald Trump 11 years ago, and it kicked off a firestorm, so to speak, in my life and in America. Now, here's the thing. Everyone thinks that Donald Trump started a long time ago when it came to going down the golden escalator. But did you know that I was there and the whole thing was already in place months before? If I had to guess, trying to figure out the timeline and everything in my mind, maybe 4 months, 5 months, 6 months before that, it started on this day, January 18th, is when Donald Trump actually first started all this, and it was very small back then, but I'm going to tell you all about it, and I'm going to connect it with George Magazine, because there was some, not a lot, all right? Let's put it where it is. Some coincidences with Donald Trump and the original George Magazine. He was on the cover. Melania was on the inside cover. Donald Trump and JFK Jr. were friends. Not only that, it was the 45th issue, or maybe it was a 47th. Either way, Donald Trump was in the George Magazine, but the things with the, how can I say this, the coincidences between George Magazine and Donald Trump go further than that. And it's interesting, and I'm going to break it all down for you, and break it all down for you with all of this stuff. But let's first talk about Donald Trump and me, going back to this date 11 years ago. When this all first started, this was even before Make America Great Again. This was before all the TV cameras, all the rallies, everything. All of this started out very slowly. Now, it's interesting because I documented this, and this first video is interesting because it's my own commercial, but I'm going to talk about it. Anyway, Greg, roll it! My name is Gene Ho. I was Donald Trump's photographer from the earliest days of the campaign until the very last day. A journey of almost 2 years. Find out what Trump was really like behind the scenes. The stories and pictures will warm your heart and restore your trust in America and your faith in God. Read my new book, Trumpography, available now, and be inspired. Okay, of course, that was not a commercial. That was me explaining to you that there is a commercial about it. The reason being is all of this started for a period of 2 years, but it started in January. So this was about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months before Donald Trump even officially started the whole thing. Here's the thing about this. When it all started, it was very small. Quite frankly, Scavino wasn't put on there yet. He was there from the beginning. He knew Donald Trump from long ago. Even Corey Lewandowski was not the official person in charge of it yet. There was another guy, and there was only one other guy there before that. One other guy, Donald Trump's bodyguard, Keith. Now, here's the thing. This is Donald Trump, used to travel around. Yes, he used to travel around in his airplane, which we dubbed Trump Force One. We traveled around to different places to do events, but these events were really small. Just like anything else when it comes to a campaign first starting out, there's not a lot of people in it. There's not a lot of people involved. It wasn't until later on when he declared that he would become a candidate when it all went crazy, but the groundwork was done before. Now it's interesting, at this time there still was no George Magazine. Yes, there was a George Magazine from a long time ago, but it wasn't there yet. That's the interesting thing about it. When it comes to all of this coming on, this changed my life because before this I had a thriving career as a photographer, as a wedding photographer, as a person that photographs celebrity weddings, all of that stuff. It's all documented on my webpage, geneho.com. But all of this was done, and then it was just merely one day where I went in and did an event with Donald Trump. And I've been traveling around the country telling about this. But you have to remember that this was way before anything, and this was when the whole groundwork was very small. Now, during this time, and I'll just go there has been a lot of attacks on George Magazine, the way it is now. There's been a lot of attacks with me, with Dave Blaze. What do you think is the purpose of these attacks? Think about it for a second. I already, because I was Donald Trump's photographer, I have received all the attacks. Oh, you weren't really his photographer. Really? I wrote a book about it. And a lot more photos are coming out now of photos that was never even seen. There's photos that are coming out with me in a room with Donald Trump off of my camera with different meetings that he had. These were given to the campaign, but some of them were never seen because some of them were private. So that's why when I say that I was there from the beginning till the very end, and even in 2020, as a photographer for the campaign, assigned working under Donald Trump Jr. Yes, later on there was a lot of photographers, but in the beginning it was only me there. And so I have a lot of these photos that I'll be showing, different photography, different scenarios where I was there in a room, but we never used them. The campaign never used them because at the time it was just personal photos. Now here's the thing about it. Why are there been so many attacks on me? Originally, the attacks on me was because I was Trump's photographer. And as a liberal-based, if I could say that, industry, the photography industry, a lot of people didn't like me. This is the photographers in the industry. Photographers that worked for me. I used to have 25 photographers that worked under Geneho Photography. They didn't like it that Trump became president, so that all went away. So I got attacked that way. But why am I attacked today with George Magazine? Why do people go back in time and say, oh, was he ever Trump's photographer? It's because they have to denigrate my relationship with Trump, my relationship with George Magazine, and even Dave Blaze's relationship. You know why? And I'm going to say it. Because there's a whole industry of people pretending to either be JFK Jr. secretly, or communicating with JFK Jr. secretly, or whatever. You realize that there's a whole industry. And these people will not say, what? What? Me? No, that's what others are saying. You realize that. You realize there's a whole industry based upon this person's getting secret information from JFK Jr. So, if we are part of George Magazine, then it's like, whoa, if these people, this is me, doesn't like somebody, it encroaches on this. So there's a whole industry, and you guys know what I mean about this. Whole industry of people pretending to communicate with JFK Jr. However, what has this thing been all along with George Magazine? You want to know the real coincidences? Back then, when it was George Magazine with JFK Jr., it was a secular magazine, just like we are doing right now. It interviewed people back then. Today, we interview people back then. And the critics would say, this can't be George Magazine because you have not interviewed a Kennedy. We interviewed a Kennedy. We interviewed Marlon Maples. We interviewed a lot of people. We, like the original George Magazine, interviewed people on the left and the right. We interviewed Mike Huckabee. We also interviewed Marianne Williamson, who is a Democrat. Interview a whole bunch of people. But they keep having to say this because they have to denigrate George Magazine. Now, here's the interesting thing about it. There are people talking about, and it is true, there are some very interesting connections or coincidences with the original George Magazine and Donald Trump. But here's the crazy thing. There's even more coincidences today having to do with Donald Trump, including this one. All right, let's take a look at a very famous George magazine cover. It's this one right here, the famous Survival Guide to the Future. And what's interesting is Mount Rushmore there and the moon that you see there. That's interesting because that is the same exact moon cycle that was over Mount Rushmore when Donald Trump gave his very famous speech with the fireworks, you remember, back in 2020. Now, here's the thing. Next time that there will be fireworks over Mount Rushmore, who knew? It's next year. There'll be fireworks for 4th of July weekend back at Mount Rushmore. But the thing is, let's go back to 2020 because I was there and I was Donald Trump Jr.'s photographer that weekend. And what did I tweet out that weekend? First of all, notice the date right there. That's the same week I was there, and I took the liberty of quoting a very famous poster. It says, "Learn to read the map and find the keystone." Now, here's the thing. Back then, in 2020, who knew that 2 years later, I would become the editor-in-chief of George magazine? But the other thing, it says to find the keystone on the map. Where is the keystone on the map? Right there. It's the town right at where Mount Rushmore is. So, how about that for a coincidence? That the person who is the editor-in-chief of George magazine now used to be Donald Trump's photographer. Now, you hear all these people say, oh, why do we listen to George magazine? Oh, why listen to Gene Ho? Okay, here's a better question. To our people that say stuff about us, all right? Why do you listen to them? Seriously, why? I'm trying to figure it out. Even people that in this movement that I don't like, even people in this movement that I don't disagree with, but sometimes I respect, or whatever. Certain ones, I can respect them. You know, even though I disagree with them, I can say, wow, look at all the things that this person accomplished. Look at all the things that this person accomplished. Okay, with George magazine, the editor-in-chief, me, the editor-in-chief is someone that actually had a conversation with Donald Trump. All these other people never even had a personal conversation with Donald Trump. Oh, but they went to college. A lot of people go to college. I went to college. Did you ever hear that about me? In my school, Coastal Carolina University, I was a distinguished alumni. You never heard that of me? Never. The reason being, it doesn't matter. We're in politics. And I have a voice in this, in politics, because I spent 2 years with Donald Trump. Why would you listen to anyone else that says, oh, I have insider information? Or maybe, oh, I went to college. Or I know all about George magazines. Really? A lot of people do. A lot of people collect them. They buy them and collect them. So why listen to these people? Also, the other thing, Dave Blaze, the CEO of George magazine, you realize that his clientele list is immense. I'm not going to give away his people, his clientele, but they are at the top of the world scene. You heard his information. His information comes out and you can see it. It's wonderful. It makes sense and it's true, or it comes true. This is why you listen to George magazine. But the other people, why? Seriously. I'm trying to guess. They were a professor. Many professors. They went to college. Many people went to college. Most of these people never had a personal conversation with Donald Trump. I was in the room with Donald Trump with other people that were not allowed to be in that room except for Secret Service. And the other thing about it, I was invited back in 2020 to be part of the campaign. And today I'm the editor-in-chief of George magazine. So anyway, choose wisely who you listen to. Because other people saying this stuff, you just wonder who they're hanging around with. And if they're hanging around with people that claim to be, or other people claim to be. JFK Jr.? Really? Doesn't make sense. Anyway, stick around because there's more to the other side of it. So let's watch this commercial, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the other proof of what a George magazine legacy should be. And quite frankly, it has to do with God. Be right back. The Gene Ho Show, coming back. All right, you know that I'm not only a parent, but I am a dad to homeschool children. And if anyone would know, it's the moms and dads out there, because You know your children want to learn, but they want to have fun doing so. Now, here's a tip. George Jr. Magazine is not only for your children. Yes, there's fun games, puzzles, recipes, cartoons, all that for them. But here's a little secret. It's also for the parents. I'm telling you because there's homeschool lesson plans there for you. I know you want to be engaged with your children to teach them, but also have fun doing it and draw a connection between you and your children. This is what you'll find in George Jr. Magazine. So check it out, get a subscription for yourself, for your children, for your grandchildren, and watch them blossom and draw closer to them. Welcome back, everyone, to the Gene Ho Show. And again, today is a very special day for me because it marks 11 years when I first met Donald Trump. I don't know. Oh, I do know. In the next months or 2 months, more photos are coming out that I'm going to show. It just endears you even more to Donald Trump. Here's one story I have. You know, there was a person that was handicapped, and Donald Trump started talking with him, had a great conversation with him, and was real. I was there. He treated him with so much respect. And then after that time, if you remember, that they accused Donald Trump of making fun of a New York Times reporter because he was disabled. I was there. I saw it on stage, and it wasn't like that. No one thought about it at the time. But after that, I told the campaign, I said, you know, I have that picture, the time that Donald Trump was talking to the paraplegic, or excuse me, quadriplegic. And I said, I could show pictures, I could tell people the story about how wonderful Donald Trump is. And you know what they said? No, we don't need to do that. We basically, Donald Trump is Donald Trump. We don't need to exploit that in this person. Well, I have the photos. I'll show the photos. It's really interesting because these are the things that I saw personally with Donald Trump. And when I did this in 2017, I wrote a book about it. Words, just a few pictures. But some of these pictures are starting to come out now that I'm going to do, and it will endear you to Donald Trump even more. However, when it comes to George Magazine, there is connections between the old George Magazine and the George Magazine today, starting with when we came back the second time around. The first issue had an article that I wrote, The Return on Trump. That same month that issue came out and George Magazine came out, what happened? Donald Trump declared his presidency early. People are like, why so early? But isn't that strange? The George Magazine had Trump on the cover and my article, The Return on Trump. There's much more of that. A lot of stuff, quite frankly, including this. And it's interesting because with the latest issue of George Magazine, when we said, so it begins, who tweeted that out after? Correct! Roll it! All right, you're ready to get more spooky dooky, and you're going to love this one because it has to do with timestamps. You know you love it. Okay, the new issue of George Magazine out right now. We told you 2 months ago that it was big because the theme of the issue was So It Begins. And you remember this video here.
Folks, the theme for issue 39 is So It Begins.
Now, the thing is, the issue is out now, and the way we designed the cover is so that it's dominoes that match with our calendar. You see all the dominoes going there until it gets to a new day. But here's the thing. What did this new year start with? Of course, you know about Maduro. Here's the interesting thing. Did you know that the New York Times and WAPO had advanced knowledge, but they didn't get the article out about their raid until later on? Who scooped them? Who knew? It was the Vatican. The Vatican put it out before them at their time, 1156. Very interesting because others followed suit 1156. Now, what's interesting about it is if you go to our cover, So It Begins, what's the first domino? You see the clock there, 1156. Okay, so you ask yourself, how does all this stuff happen? Again, we were given this. The reason we were given all of this is because when it comes to George Magazine, George Magazine is competing with all these people. And the information we give is accurate, and what does it do? It teaches people how to think. All these other people that are out there, obviously some are good, a lot of good, but some are bad. Some of these people are constantly saying stuff that, number one, never comes true. All the stuff we write about, you can see it, comes true later on. We were talking about Trump, and we were also talking about in that cover of how Trump protects Christians. We also talked about different things, such as the persecution of Christians in Nigeria. Now, we still have a reporter on the ground. We reported on that 2 years ago. It was only recently that Donald Trump, when he was back being president, bombed Nigeria to protect Christians. So all of this stuff, and if you go to projectlookingglass.org, projectlookingglass.org, you can see all of these things, and we even coined the word spooky dookie. But all of this is to show that the information we have is weird, but it's credible. And how does this all happen, these coincidences? Remember, the first George magazine had the survival guide to the future. So that is one of the legacies of George magazine. So if we are George magazine today, we should be able to do things like this. Greg, roll it! Alrighty everyone, you ready to get spooky dookie with me? This one you're gonna love because we're talking about the map, and in particularly in South Carolina, right by Hilton Head Island. All right, this happened on Twitter in March, so this was about 6 months ago. Let me walk you through it. It was a tweet that I did, and it says there, worthy thread here, what is a bird? Save this picture, the map. You want coincidences? More coming. And how much proof do you need? Or listen to the other people and ask them what's going on. And really, that's the purpose of the map. You've seen for, I guess, the past year, we would show you articles we write and how they came through true later on. But we also had the calendar, the covers, the map. This is all in an effort to show you a distinction between us and them. These other people, they have no contacts. If they even know the president, they only met him through like a rally with a barrier between them. But when it comes to us, what we say gets published, and then later on it comes true, and the map is just another one of them. So going back to this, it talks about this bird, all right? This is the picture that was shown there, and this is what I asked people to save. That is in Hilton Head, South Carolina, and I'll show you a close-up of it. And you could clearly see the bird there with the eyes, the beak, the body, the feet. Now, remember, this was done in March, so about 6 months ago. What just happened in the news recently? In Hilton Head, who knew? They discovered a new species of bird. It's a warbler, a yellow and blue warbler. But it's just breaking news because it was never discovered before, a new species. But there's one more point to it. Remember when I talked about the bird? Notice how I phrased it. Bird with a Y. And why did I do that? Because bird with a Y is how the Irish say it. And the warbler is an Irish bird. So think about this. How does this all happen? How does this 6 months before I point to the map in South Carolina? Then I say, watch this, watch this. 6 months later, the bird was discovered, a new species of bird in South Carolina in Hilton Head. Here's the thing. All of this is in an effort to show you that the things that we write about and tell about are credible. All these other people, oh, don't listen to George magazine. Don't listen to Gene Ho. He's a fraud. He's this, he's that. Why would you listen to these people? Really? They went to college? Do they know Trump? Have they ever had a personal conversation? Think about it. And also think about the reason. These people that say that, do they have an attachment to people that are pretending or saying or pretending to be JFK Jr. or that they get information from JFK Jr.? Think about that. Anyway, when we come back, we're going to talk about the real reason for all of this. Stick around. The Gene Ho Show coming back. It was my mom that taught me all about the stock market, about mutual funds, individual stocks, what to look for, All of this stuff I learned and passed it on to my children. But here's the thing, when it comes to cryptocurrency, what am I going to do? Take advice from my children? So that's why George Magazine came up with the Complete Crypto Playbook, a simple way with all of these topics to help you understand all the nuances of the cryptocurrency. So simple that you could even explain it to others. So here's the thing, understand the difference between a hot wallet and a cold wallet. What about all these different coins? All of these things come into play in an easy to read and comprehensive playbook when it comes to crypto. So check it out. Go to georgemagazine.com and buy and download your crypto playbook today. Welcome back, everyone, to the Gene Ho Show. Here we go, just talking about this for a second. And I've heard it all. When it comes to George Magazine, I've heard it all. I've even heard, what are the gatekeepers, whatever that means in politics. Here's the thing. The things that we talk about in George Magazine, it is a secular magazine, meaning we tell about things that's going on, but we help people to navigate the future. The reason why we do that is because we're telling you what to look for in the future, and these are the things that can be easily seen because we know which way the direction of politics is going. That is why you listen to people that know about politics. That's why you listen to people that are talking to other people in politics. Besides Donald Trump, I was the photographer for a governor, for a senator, for Congress people like that, and people like Dave Blaze, who, his client list, you would be like, wow. If you knew about Dave Blaze and his clients in his IT business, you'd be like, no wonder why he knows all these things. But we take all this information and we tell you about it and break it down for you so you understand what's going on next. That's what we do. But here's the other thing that we do, and probably the real reason why people are trying to stop us. If you haven't noticed, every morning we do a Bible devotional. We praise Jesus every single morning before the day starts. That is the real reason why people hate us, because we are expanding and using our influence to expand the belongings of the Lord Jesus. In a nutshell, that's what's really happening. They want that stopped. And so when we take this, did we take this George Magazine and start talking about, next week, don't forget, there's going to be this disaster, and this. No, you saw these shows. What we do is explain to you what's going on. We explain to you how the government works, how Congress works, how bills are passed, and what is stopping a bill from being passed. But in the meantime, we also do one important thing, and this people should be proud of. We tell people and declare the Lord Jesus Christ. And at the end of the day, whenever you do that, you have a lot of enemies. So, listen to them or listen to us. But you know, by their fruits, you shall recognize them. So thank you so much. Looking forward to a great year. And there's a lot of Trump photography that I'm still going to show you, because way back then wasn't relevant, but it's relevant now. You're watching the Gene Ho Show, and we will see you next week. Thanks for checking us out. Don't forget to go to georgemagazine.com and sign up for the Dispatch. It's free. Get the emails and the news stories. And check us out Monday through Friday, 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You can check us out on Facebook and YouTube. We'll see you then.